Hello, and welcome to Nutrition University. Our motto is Smarter Eating for Greater Learning. So thank you for being here today. My name is Melinda Arcara. I'm a University of New England Master's in Applied Nutrition candidate, and I'm going to be talking to you today during this seminar about how nutrition can impact college students like yourself. So who am I? Well, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, blogger, social media influencer, and certified health coach. I wrote a book called 3 Steps to Gluten-Free Living to help people with digestive diseases such as celiac or gluten intolerance to adapt a healthy gluten-free eating style. So I consider myself a healthy food advocate, and I promote eating whole, clean, local, seasonal, and organic foods. I've developed a restaurant program to train and educate food service workers on the needs of people who are gluten-free. I'm also been nominated or been named one of the top 30 gluten-free influencers for 2019 and 2020 by the Gluten-Free Buyer's Guide. You can find me on social media as Gluten-Free BB. It's my logo down below, and I live in Chester County, Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia with my husband of 25 years, my 2 children, and my fluffy dog, Louie LaFluff. So, we have a busy day today. We're going to talk about all kinds of things with nutrition, but we're going to do an activity to start out called Apples, Apples, Apples. Then we're going to talk about basic nutrition. We're going to give a review or just general knowledge for anyone who needs it. We're going to talk about classes of nutrition, about body mass index. We're going to talk about good carbs and bad carbs. Then we're going to move on and we're going to talk about health in college, health now in college, and how it can impact your academics and the benefits of it. And we're going to have an activity where we show you some food prep on how to prepare foods that include these different classes of nutrients. And then we're going to talk about knowledge now for future health. And we have an activity called Happiness and is with Healthiness, and how nutrition now can affect you for your future health. We're going to talk about exercise, vitamins and minerals, and healthy behavior changes. And then we'll have some final thoughts, and I'll give you some tips and tricks to take away with you. So what are the objectives here today? Well, we're going to cover the nutrition gaps. We're going to talk about a nutrition review, and we're going to talk about gaps in nutrition that came from your family foundation, your friends and your caregivers. Where did the lack of nutrition information come from? Then we're going to talk about how nutrition helps you now. We're going to discuss current health needs and what changes need to be made to improve health, academic performance, and mental health, and more. And then how nutrition helps future health. We're going to evaluate how current behaviors need to be adjusted or added to prevent future diseases such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and cancer. So the first activity is called Apples, 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 and everybody's going to come up and they're going to pick up a fresh apple, a squeezable applesauce, and some apple chips. And with that, I'm going to ask you to use your 5 senses and experience each of one of these things. And the first thing that you notice or you experience, I want you to write that down on the piece of paper that comes inside your packet. Did any of them remind you of a time in your life, an event, or an experience? Most people would probably say that fresh apple was just nourishing. It was just wonderful. And it isn't just about nourishment. It's about family and friends and connections and experiences, your memories, your cultures. So many things influence your food choices and nutrition status. And I think when you taste an apple and you taste the crunchiness and sweetness versus an apple chip, which is just crunchy, or applesauce that, came from a factory, I think fresh apples will provoke, much more than just eating an apple. So what are the early influences of nutrition? Well, our genetics have a lot to do with it. Your health is passed down from your mother, your grandmother, your great-grandmother. So everything that you got from your mother came from the women on her side of the family. But your nutrition status also came from, what was your health of your mother when she was pregnant? That was all transferred over to you. Were you breastfed? Were you a C-section baby? Did your mother smoke? Did she exercise? What was her vitamin D status? Those are all very important influencers on your nutrition. You are the health of your father from the last 2 weeks prior to conception, which is amazing because, so much of your mother came from your genetics in the past, but your father passed on much of the nutrition stat of his nutrition status 2 weeks prior. So sperm turns over every 2 weeks. So that's how that happened. So what are the early influences of nutrition? Well, cultural and religious traditions, parent knowledge, exposure to diverse foods, routines, and habits. How much TV did you watch? 20,000 food images per year. How could you not be affected by that? $4.6 billion is spent on advertising. So there were a lot of, you were bombarded with a lot of images, I'm sure, growing up. Restaurant dining, did you spend a lot of time? Was food convenient? Did you have cost implications? Did you live in a food desert, or did you have strong women that gave you a good nutrition foundation? Women usually research and read more labels than men do. So did you have a good female foundation? College nutrition statistics. Let's look at your group in general. The average young adult eats fewer than 1 serving of fruits and vegetables per day. And the average co-ed will eat at a fast food restaurant 1 to 3 times per week. 19 to 39-year-olds drink more soda. Thin students eat more whole grains than overweight and obese students. And the worst college weight gain came from unlimited meal plans, snacking, and junk foods. So these are the statistics that we see in the college area. So what do we find? Studies show that when students understand nutrition information labels, their purchasing behaviors improve with healthier choices. That means nutrition education is the key to improving health in college, and that's why you're here at Nutrition University to learn that. So Nutrition 101, Basic Nutrition Review. So with everything, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. So the beginning, we're going to start from the very beginning and assume that you need a nutrition review or you haven't received a good nutrition background. And Lao Tzu, who's a Chinese philosopher, said, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with 1 step." So this is the first step. This is the beginning. So Nutrition 101 for young adults. Nutrition is a science that links food to health and disease. Food provides energy in the form of calories. It helps maintain and build muscle cells. Proper nutrition and physical activity is needed throughout life, and you have to eat the correct amount of calories for your activity level. So if you look at the chart to the right, you can see by gender, males and females, that based on your age, how much activity you need. So for a woman, let's say between 19 and 22 years old, with moderate activity, you'd need about 2,200 calories. So you need to take into account those 3 things when you decide how many calories that you need. So to keep it simple, we're going to look at 3 sources of nutrients. We're going to look at carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So we're going to start with carbohydrates. We've all heard that carbs are your enemy. There's a big trend right now that says carbs are your enemies. But look over to the right. You can see that fruits and vegetables and whole grains, those are all carbohydrates. And of course, those aren't bad for you. Complex carbohydrates are broken down by simple and complex carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates have slower insulin release. And simple carbohydrates lack vitamins and minerals and have faster insulin release, and they make you crave more sweets. So really, carbs found in sugar and processed foods are the enemy. And you can see in the lower right-hand corner, just remember this picture where candy is the enemy and sugar is the enemy, not carbohydrates. So you have to be specific with that. So one carbohydrate that I'd like you to eat more of is whole grains. And when you look at this picture, you can see what a whole grain is. A whole grain is actually all 3 parts. The bran, which is the outside, the germ, which contains all the vitamin B and the minerals and nutrients, and then the endosperm, which is the food for the grain, is the largest area. And subsequently, that's where the gluten is contained for gluten-free foods. So whole grains, refined grains, and enriched grains. So when we look at whole grains, contain 100% of the nutrients listed. So look at all the nutrients that are listed in a whole grain. The refined grains, which means that one or more of the key components are removed. So either the bran, the germ, or the endosperm are removed. And that's the red area. So when they take out or refine the grains, it increases the shelf life of things that they use with it. And with that, you lose a lot of the nutrients. So when the nutrient deficiencies happened, then the government came in and started enriching these foods back in. So your bread is made, let's say processed bread is made with refined grains, and then they go back and they enrich it with B1, B2, all these nutrients that are in yellow. So this is a pretty powerful slide that you can see a whole grain, which is in green, versus an enriched grain, which is in yellow. So how do carbs help you in college? Well, they help you with improving your sleep. They improve your gut health. They improve your mental health and academic performance. They give you more energy, and they help you maintain your weight. So we talk about good carbs and bad carbs in your weight. You know, good carbs help with weight management. That's whole grains, where bad carbs, sugar, can increase your weight. So the activity that we're going to do is called good carb, bad carb, whole grain, processed grain. And in your folder, you have a piece of paper that has areas that outline good carb, bad carb. And there's food items on the table, and you can list out or write down where you think each of these food items go on the form. And then we can talk about how some grains can be a good grain. Let's say a whole grain would be white rice, but it is a processed grain because it may have had one or more of the components of a grain taken out of it. So, something could be a good carb and a processed grain. So we'll talk about that as well. So we talked about carbohydrates. Now we're going to talk about proteins. Proteins are the building blocks for the body. They provide 4 calories per gram. They help in build your immune system, your muscles, your bones. They're important for blood, body cells, and you're usually found in meats, poultry, eggs, dairy, and cheese. But there's plant sources of protein as well, like grains, beans, and some vegetables. Too much protein will be converted and stored into fat. So when you're talking of protein, you want to think quality, not quantity, right? So you would want to eat, good quality, maybe more plant-based proteins than processed foods like processed meats and things. So how do proteins help you in college? So they provide strong bones, they give you energy, they help with weight management. They help support your immune system, and they provide lots of vitamins and amino acids for your brain, like vitamin A, iron, zinc, and folate. So we talked about carbohydrates, proteins. Now let's talk about healthy fats or lipids. They provide 9 calories per gram, so they're very high in calories, so you don't need to eat very many. You want to look for fats that are mono or polyunsaturated, which have a lower disease risk. And those are more plant-based, like olive oil, canola oil, sunflower oil. Even fish, like salmon, has good fat in it. Meats like beef contain more saturated fat. And those are from animals, so like butter and lard. But coconut and palm oil have high amounts of saturated fat, which can contribute to heart disease as well. So the one fat you want to avoid is trans fats, and they use those in fried foods like donuts and processed foods because it increases their shelf life. So you'd want to avoid trans fat because they contribute to heart disease as well. So how do fats help you in college? Well, they provide energy to get you through the day. They help with brain development for improved academic performance. They improve your emotions. They help keep your body lubricated. They provide vitamins and minerals, and they help lower inflammation. So when we talk about fats, we talk about quality versus quantity again. And you would want to choose maybe nuts and seeds and plant-based items versus saturated fats that came from animal protein or animals like beef.